need to be drawing while I try and answer questions on YouTube and stuff. So let's see if we can mix the two together. We'll start with this one here. It's Creepshow 314, who is a buddy of mine actually. Let's find out if he makes himself apparent of who he is. Cool video game moments, hilarious mashups. Doesn't seem like he's revealing who he is, so I won't do it either at the moment. Says, what is your... Oh, wait, here we go. When drawing your own comic, what page size / dimensions do you use, and what is your preferred drawing software? Do you have personalized brushes that you can share? That one's easy. I do not. Basically, what are your tools of the trade? Okay, tools of the trade. So, primarily, I would prefer to be drawing traditionally. That is what I like the most, using pencils on paper and ink. But I decided to draw Power Stars entirely digital because there isn't enough room in the place that I'm at where I could set up a drawing desk and my computer desk. So to make it simple, just all digital. And when digital, I use Manga Studio 5. So there's a concept of how people use or adopt products, or so we got your innovators, who are the people who actually create the change or the product. The early adopters are the people who are most excited about the thing. So let's just use drawing software as an example. I had a buddy who was always excited about the next brand new drawing software. So like every 2 months he would text me and say, this program just came out, it's the best thing ever, and all the other programs are garbage. And then 2 months later he'd be like, that program that I was using is garbage, here's the next new one that's all brand new, and it's cool. He was an early adopter. He was somebody who was always super excited about the next thing, and everything else was trash. And I realized that I'm not like that. So most people are early majority. So my buddy would lead the way, make it normal to use that new software. Other people would be like, oh, that is cool, I want to use it. That becomes the early majority. We get the late majority, and I'm not even that when it comes to drawing software or even drawing tools in general, like pens and anything. I am what would be a laggard. I am somebody who absolutely refuses to change until it's impossible for me to continue forward with what I have. So, for example, I used Photoshop forever, and then I got a new computer, and I don't remember exactly why, but I was like, you know what? I bought that Manga Studio 5 10 years ago. Let me try that out. So it wasn't impossible to keep using Photoshop, but I finally changed to Manga Studio 5, which by the time I started using it a couple years ago had already become obsolete as a program. And I do have the newer version, under the branding of Clip Paint Studio or something like that, some terrible name. But I learned how to use Manga Studio, and Clip Paint Studio is different, and I don't have the interest in changing until it's absolutely necessary. So when it's digital, I, as a laggard, like to use Manga Studio 5. So here's one of the pages that I'm working on for Power Stars. This is page 204. And before I, do digital stuff, I guess we better look into tools. So when it's working traditionally, for a long time I started inking because manga artists, I heard, use nibs, and the G pen being maybe the standard one as far as I knew. So I was like, I guess I'll use that since I like the way manga looks inked. I don't care for traditional American inking. So like there's a concept rules in American inking, especially like traditional comics, where you use a brush, and I did try out a brush. I'm pretty sure what I used was a Winsor Newton. It was Steve Lieber gave me one to try it out back when I was like interning at Periscope, and this is what apparently most traditional inkers use. So like for example, when I worked on Sonic or Mega Man, Sonic inked by Terry Austin and Mega Man inked by Gary Martin. Gary Martin definitely was using a brush, and I'm certain that Terry Austin was using a brush as well to do the inking. And so it was fun to like experiment and see how I felt about it. I was pretty sure that it wasn't going to produce the look that I like, and I was right about that. Like, the whole point about being an artist, in my opinion, is obviously finding what excites you, the way you want to create the look of your art, and having the right tools and finding the right tools are necessary. That's why I'm a laggard in tools, whether it be the digital or the traditional. Once I find a pen that I like, or paper or anything like that, I won't change until it becomes impossible to continue forward. So with the brushes, the thing that I found most usable for the way I want to do is actually drawing dead trees. So like all the little leafless branches and stuff like that. I found a brush worked really well for that and easy. But that that's not. Well, I guess part of the concept could be that use the right tool for the different or for the right task. I guess don't use one tool for everything unless that ultimately can be done with the style that you're creating. But maybe if I drew a scene with some dead trees on paper, I might use a brush to do the branches, but not likely. What I would probably use, what I prefer to use in general with inking, are Micron pins, or I think Micron also counts as a technical pin. A tech pin, I just typed in tech pins, and this is what they look like. I'm not seeing. My parents bought me some Sakura Micron pins when I was young, and that just became what I was familiar with. And there's one, so I guess they do count as technical pins. But you got this nice steady point. I like what can often be called as a deadline, where there isn't a wide variety of variability and fluctuation in the line width as you're drawing. So like when drawing digitally, I wouldn't normally just jump over. We'll just slap it down real quick here. Let's say I was inking this right here. I, in real life, prefer to use a mechanical pen, mechanical pencil 0.5, I believe, in lead, so very, very tiny. I like a nice, thin, straight line. And, let's turn it black. So, no, that's a G pen. So in Manga Studio, you have different pen styles. You can apparently, it's been a long time since I used a G pen, so that seems fairly like what I remember. Meaning that you get this nice variability depending on pressure. You got a thinner point here, and then a thicker point here, and so you get, when you're inking. And I found I was looking through some old art, and I found a lot of this comic pages I drew, for myself, for my own work and samples and things that I had done inking with a G pen. I was surprised how much I'd actually done, and it looks great. I do like that. That's what I like about manga. I like the kind of sketchy feel of their inks, and that's why I don't particularly like American inks, where they're nice and let's go ahead and just bring one up as an example real quick. Yeah, all right. So there's this concept when inking traditional American comics that where the light hits, we can assume like right here in Nightcrawler's forearm that the light, that we're getting this, light probably from an upper light source. We got a nice thin line right here, and then where the shadow, is the thicker lines down below, right? We're also getting a thick line there, which is a little interesting, but like we get, once again, a nice thick line here on Wolverine's leg, thick line right here, a little bit more extra shadowing and stuff. That's like a traditional, here right there in Colossus, a little thicker on the bottom, thinner on the top there. So you get a traditional inking philosophy of lighter lines where light is hitting, thicker lines where shadow and volume would be represented, and I don't care for that at all. I also don't, I don't like the look of this kind of ink. I mean, I like Terry Austin, it's fine. I'm not trying to pick on him. He's just the guy that I'm familiar with and got me the results I needed right away. So, with microns, and that's what I like about manga too, you just draw. I mean, maybe there are some rules that I'm unaware of and that they're doing something. You still want to create shadows with black, and, you can create thicker lines, but you can also do thicker lines in all kinds of ways and reasons that don't have to have this more strict rule and presentation and stuff. Um, so anyway, the tech pins, micron pins, that's what I ink with if I'm doing traditional pin on paper. And if I was going to do dead tree branches or like a thicker outline, I finally found, also made by Sakura, a graphic 1 pin, which gives you sort of a mic, or is it might consider itself a marker. I'm not really sure, but you get a nice thick, once again, extremely even, sort of not completely dead line. You're still getting the tiniest bit of variability. Yeah, the graphic 1, I guess they call it a bullet there, so you have like, the more rounded line, and then the 2 and 3 become the chisels, obviously. But this is what I would use if I was going to draw dead branches now. Like, I would love to simply just make a single, because if you're using a tech pin, then you're going to have to create the outline, because the line is so thin. Unless you're drawing tiny, tiny little thin branches, you would be drawing the entire contour of the dead tree branch, which would take forever, and it did. That's the kind of stuff that I used to do. Then I discovered the graphic 1. I was like, oh, cool. Then you just do the whole black line, unless I think you get the idea. Maybe you don't, and it doesn't even really matter. Let's talk about tools and drawing in terms of digital, because this is what I use all the time. Oh, did I even finish what I was talking about? So, if I was inking a character, which I will in a little bit, like a mechanical pencil, I like a 0.5, and I use the turnip pin because the turnip pin produces a nice, dead line, no variability. Like you can see all the like those little thin marks that I had there, all that tapering and stuff. Nice straight line. And I realized that what I like, aside from the manga, initially when I started drawing Power Stars, I thought that I would try to do a kind of manga style inking, and I drew like 40 pages or something like that in that style, with I assume I was using a G pen, to get a little bit, like you can see, look how, I mean, I hope that you can see this or makes sense to you. Look at how wobbly like that line is, like look at how rough and kind of, free forming. We got all kinds of line like how thin right there as it gets up there, like how thin and that tapers to that really thick line there. The thinness of the nose, all that, there's just tons of line variability in there. And that was because I thought, what if I just make it all kind of sketchy, not too clean. And I quickly discovered I didn't like that, but I was like 10 pages in, and I was like, well, I guess I just commit to it now. And then I drew another 30, and then I just like, oh, dang, actually I drew maybe 60-something pages. Wow. In that style before I was like, you know what, I hate this, I don't want to ink like this doesn't make me happy for Power Stars. Maybe that would make me happy for something else, but it didn't make me happy for Power Stars. So I decided to redraw the whole thing and re-ink all of these pages and stuff with the way that I wanted to ink. And I discovered, in terms of Power Stars anyway, and really in general, I really like the way cartoons look, where you frequently get a nice clean line, determining the contours. I'm trying to think of a good example. The first thing that popped up in my head was Tiny Toons. Let's see if anything will, specifically from TMS. Yeah, let's use that Hampson right there. There is what appears to be some line that looks thicker here, but this looks like a screenshot of something, so it's hard to know how accurate that might actually be in terms of display. But there's not a lot, like look at that nice, just great curve on the belly there. There's not any line variation, clear in that. That cheek, all the, like, just all these nice, clean, really solid lines. Yeah, like, the foot. I like this look quite a bit. And so that's what I decided would be best for Power Stars. So when going into Power Stars, using the turnip pin at a 0.5, I then, will try to create um, nice solid. All right, I don't want to mess around with that. Right there, I'm getting distracted already. You know, right there, boom. And then I would come in. Well, let's use his mouth real quick. So, ink the bottom line there, ink the top line. Now we got one nice continuous curve. That's not the curve I want, because I do want to try and capture what I have here in the layout, or something close to it. And oh damn it, I'm using the wrong layer type. All right, well, here's a good example of, you know, I guess tools of trade, my process, or whatever. So I have created over here, you see layer 13. This is a rasterized layer. I actually do not like inking on rasterized layers because, in this case, I have a curve that I actually really like, and it's pretty close to the example of what I want to finally achieve, but it's a little off right there, right? So I use the magic wand brush. You can see it's selecting that line and this line. It's actually selecting all black on there because I don't have follow adjacent pixel on. I turn that back on to select just that continuous line that touches. And I would then use free transform to nudge that line up, right? But because this is a rasterized layer, when you close in, so we zoom super in here, and you can see that nice, clean, pixelated edge. Right, but because this is a rasterized layer, the moment I move it, you see how it's become anti-alias, it's deformed. I don't like inking, you know, on rasterized layers for that reason. What I do instead, so I'm just going to trash layer 13 there. I'm going to create a vector layer, and so this vector layer, I can do something similar. And I'll just, you know, that doesn't make me happy. I don't like that line at all. But just for an example, I then use it to slightly tweak to get more. I still don't like that. I would destroy this line. But I've now manipulated it, I've transformed it, and it's still nice and clean because it's a vector. So I ink initially on vector layers if I want to make any slight changes, or, you know, do a slight rotation or something. I'm just going to delete that layer because I will come back. I like working linearly, you know, so I work on the panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4 as I go along here. So I'm working on panel 1. And panel 1, I'll just turn all these layers off real quick, go to my layouts. That's my layout. So I have it on a low opacity so I can draw over it, but that's what it looked like when I created it. I drop it in, I lower the opacity down quite a bit, so that way I can use it as a guide as I'm drawing. And I've decided, and I'm not totally sold on it, that I would change up the concept a little bit here. So in the layout, you can hopefully see that this is very flat. So, you know, there's, if we did a perspective grid or vanishing point, you know, that would be pretty close to what it is right there. And for the actual panel, I've decided to try and make it a little bit more dynamic, where the vanishing points are, and oh yeah, so part of the reason I decided to use Manga Studio apart from Photoshop is because you can create your perspective grid in Manga Studio. So you can see that I have one vanishing point here. Hopefully you can see that. You can see that, right? Well, maybe not. Well, you can see I have two vanishing points here. You know, so the horizon line is way, way above the page. And then you can actually create 3-point perspectives and maybe more in Manga Studio, but I don't like, in even this I wouldn't usually do. I wouldn't actually put two vanishing points on a single layer, because when you go in, if I want to draw a line that connects to that vanishing point over there, you know, I need to make a mark that goes in that direction, and it automatically lines up to that vanishing point, right? But if I want to go to the other direction, then I make a mark in that direction, automatically lines up into that, you know, vanishing point. But the more vanishing points you have, like if this is a 3-point perspective, then it starts, you know, like you make a line, it's like, oh, that's not where I want it to go. So it's just annoying to me. So I usually separate out my vanishing points onto different layers. So this is the layer indicating the depth of this image that I'm looking at here. What's going down, away from us in the. I guess that's technically true for the other ones too, but I think of this as being the vanishing point that's deeper in the image, and so it's the one that dictates the direction of this blast, and that's what this thing is. This is a laser. It's a giant laser blast from a spaceship that's launching out. And so in the original layouts with a flat, it's right at the top center and coming at the viewer. But now I've got it shifted over, rotated over a little bit, tilted back, and blasting off to the top left a little bit here, going in this. Yes, going in that direction. I'm not sold entirely, but on the decision to do that, because there's something in terms of storytelling that's far more effective about the original layout idea, because the character is going up and there's a new threat right above him. But I thought maybe this is a slightly more dynamic version of it. Does it tell the exact same story? I'm going to commit. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this slightly more dynamic version and hopefully be satisfied when it's all over and done with. So at this point, I've got, I don't need that layout for what I'm drawing right now, which is the layer, the the laser, and the surrounding technologies and stuff. Let's go back to my buddy's question and see if am I missing anything else. What is your preferred drawing software? Manga Studio 5. Do you have any personalized brushes? Nope. Oh, what page size and dimensions do you use? Okay, so when I worked at Archie and then eventually DC, they mailed me their own paper. So Archie mailed me their paper, and then DC mailed me their paper. I don't know whose this is anymore. So I just scanned in. This might be DC's paper. Or maybe it's Archie's. I just scanned in one of the pages they sent me to get their exact comic book dimensions made out for me. And I just always use this template with this layer of this comic book page posted in, which is that, we're drawing at a 15 by 17 sheet of paper in real life. That's what I was drawing, like when I, was working at Archie and Mega Man and all that. And DC, they had, DC I could have drawn mostly digitally, and IDW, probably, but IDW did not send me paper, I don't think. Even when I got to DC and IDW, where I was doing my own pencils and inks, I wanted to continue to work traditionally because that was the preference. I haven't thought about that stuff in a long time. All right, so anyway, I scanned in with somebody's, piece of paper, gives me the exact comic dimensions, 1517. That's what I'm using to draw all my comic books. I just always use that template as my base. And when I... we'll just work and maybe stuff will come up as I do this. And if not, I'll stop the video and hopefully that's something to maybe help. I don't know if, really, unless you're using Manga Studio 5, like me, using an outdated piece of software.